Hello and welcome to another session of the 2021 Online Student Development Conference. I'm Mariette Harcombe, Chair of the Council, and with me today is Rufus Maculuve, who is a musician, a researcher, and a lecturer. He teaches cultural production and sound for film at the Higher Institute of Arts and Culture in Maputo in Mozambique. He's also the co-founder of Kaleidoscopio, Research in Public Policy and Culture. So he is a self-taught musician and also one of the founding members of the Kapadesh Band. As one of the band's keyboard players, he has recorded and composed songs with the band. His works include the soundtracks of a number of films, including A Ponte, A Night Stop, directed by Lucinio Azevedo, A Bola, directed by Orlando Mosquito, and I Love You, directed by Rogerio Manjate. Maculuve is the president of the Mozambican Federation of Cultural and Creative Industries. So very welcome to you, Rufus. We look forward to your presentation today, entitled Soundscapes of the Omuhipita.
Thank you. Thank you very much, and thank you for the invitation. It's such a pleasure to speak to a different class of scientists, even though I have a number of friends who are on archaeology, but it's not every day that I speak to people who are linked to archaeology, which it's a great pleasure for me, because I also myself I try to do some sort of sonic archaeology, if there's such a thing. Yeah, well, as Mariette has said, I'm a musician. I like to see myself also as someone who thinks a lot in relation to sounds. My presentation today is called Soundscapes of Omuhipita, which is a project that it's still under development. It's an idea that I started maybe 3 years ago, when I started having interest in soundscape as a form also of telling history of a place, as a form of also telling local narratives, and also a form also for well-being. If someone is in a particular space, sound also plays a role in a well-being of that space. Of course, when we are used to what we see, which is great, of course, beauty as a visual thing, I think that's our most obvious and implanted cultural notion. But then to start discussing how sound plays a role in the way we interact with each other, the way we look into ourselves, the way we listen. I started that discussion, of course, based on a number of other sonic scientists who had already done a lot of work in that field. People like Schaefer, a Canadian anthropologist, who musician like me, who went also to look into the well-being of the cities based on the sonic experience. The same applies to a number of other sonic researchers like Barry Trucks, also, who has done a lot of work in that sense. But I started working specifically at the Mozambique island. That's why the paper is called Soundscapes of Omuhipita. Omuhipita is the traditional name of the Mozambique island before, from pre-colonial times. Then my aim was to see how the oceanic mobility of people, sounds, and ideas and also the environment of the island shapes or has shaped the sonic experience at the island, meaning that the island, the sound of the island is a result also of mobility, but not only, also it's a result of the geophony. Geophony, meaning the geographical space where the island is, the winds, the sea, all the natural environment which is linked to the latitude and longitude of the island. It sounds like that because it is in that specific space. It's an island which is in a certain space on the planet. And also looking at the biophony, um, the species of animals that are living in that island, trees and all the other things that can influence, and also extracting the human element, which unfortunately is the one that does a lot of damage, as we know. So also, but also the fact that the human experience is also the space where we can dwell into the historical ideas of sounds, of expressions. And in that sense, I chose one expression that is called Maulid Nakira, which is an Islamic influence kind of music and dance, but also which has been transformed locally, according to the local expressions, according to the local ways of dealing with day-to-day aspects of life. So I went to the island and I was able to extract a number of sonic elements. Some are easy to describe, some are not that easy to describe, because the whole idea of starting this discussion is to call to the attention around the sonic experience. Yes, that's one thing, but also to awaken the sonic memories of those who have been to the island and somehow might miss it or might not even notice the sounds because they were too busy looking, because there's a lot to see at the island. I did some sort of digging, asking for sounds that are extinct, because most of the writings about places, I mean, now we can record the sounds of the places, but imagine before recordings were there, early 20th century or late 19th century, how did people describe their sonic experience? They had to do it in words, which I think it's an impossible mission, so to speak. Then, but because the culture of capturing sounds, it's not there in the science. Well, due the scientific traditions, which I'm not going to discuss, but people mostly focus in what you can see, in what you can show. And unfortunately, sound has not been on the lucky side of recording, the experiences. So even when you read, I went to read diaries from travelers, late 14th century to the 18th century, you don't find many writings about the sounds or about things that make sound on the island. There's one explorer, Harry Salt, who wrote a bit about what he saw, slaves dancing in the quarters where they were living, and certain musical instruments that were being played. And so far, I can say that I haven't had any evidence of their modern presence, except for some of the drums. Most of them were, I don't think they are anymore being played. Like the ambira, how he calls it, which is most, for me, it's more similar to the Zimbabwean, the so-called Zimbabwean bira, which is a lamellophone that is all over Southern Africa, the Tanzania, Mozambique, Malawi, Zambia, and so forth, South Africa. It's an instrument that what people will call the thumb piano. It's played in many traditional cultures. So this is one sound. Also, he mentioned that there was what he called a capacious horn, which was blown when ships would come into the island. And also he mentions drums, tam-tams, as he calls them. But I don't think, maybe this is very speculative from my side, I don't think those are the drums that are being played now there, because through this tracking of sonic experiences, sonic ideas that have traveled across, I was able to see that the most of the drums that I use at the island are hand drums, which are Arabic inspired. That's why they called some of them doof, which is the doof, because in Amakwa you don't have the sound D. You have, then they always substitute it with a T. But enough of that. I just wanted to give a bit of the context. Then I went to the island also to record and do some initial findings on what could be the sounds that are dominating at the moment. I must say that this has been a very exploratory phase. I still want to go there, to deepen my search. But immediately I was taken, of course, by the geophony, the sound of the waves. You have two sides of the island. You have the one that is facing the mainland, because the island is not very far from the mainland. You can see the mainland from the island. It's I'm not sure, but it's not, I'm not sure how many kilometers is the bridge. There's a bridge to the island. Then you have the other side, which is facing the ocean. Being in these sites, depending on the time of the day, on the tide, you'll have two different sonic experiences. When the ocean is strong, you are, you're put in a kind of scary situation. If you've never been to that kind of space or moment, it's quite scary, because the waves blow all the way into the pavement where you will be walking. It's a huge sound. It's a very, very powerful sound. Then, but going to the other side, you can hear the sound from far, but you're not exposed to the sonic power of it. It's relatively calm. Then this is one element. And also the wind, because it's highly influenced by the monsoons, which also have played a key element in the oceanic travels. Let's say before the steam engine, the dhows had to fully depend on the monsoons, which means that if you were late by April to go to India, you would be stuck until November, something like that. Maybe I'm not being precise with the exact period, but there was the southwest monsoon and there was the northeast monsoon, which played a role in the travels. So in that sense, people would be stuck at the island for months and months because they just missed a tiny window of travel. Then also there is the biophony. Also, there are not so many recorded or written things about the traditional fauna and flora of the island. But I think there must be a lot written. Unfortunately, due the pandemic, I could not travel to Portugal, where we have the colonial archives, where I think there must be a lot more information. But you have like small birds which are there, because I must tell you that the island is fully inhabited now. You don't really have like a free plot, so to speak. The whole island it's over its capacity, so you must think that there's no space for any wild animals or you know. And also there's the underwater aspect, which for this phase I decided to, you know, not to go for it for now. But I think also there's a lot to listen to underwater, which I think it will be quite interesting. Then also I looked into what was actually my main focus, the human element of the island. Also, some people will call it anthropophony, or some people will call technophony, because through technology, human beings end up manipulating the environment. It was possible to hear old air condition buzzing, motorbikes, which for me, personal thing, they make the experience not so nice sometimes, because they're very loud. And also measuring them, I could see that they were in a very high threshold, over 120 dBs. And when you think that for close to 120 dBs, which is the threshold for our ear, from there, then you are in a kind of painful situation for your ear. Also, very interesting, which is a natural thing I didn't mention earlier, a biophony. You have also what is called the Indian crow, this small black crow, which in a way it's now populating the island, and somehow being a predator to the traditional crow, and also making the experience, because it's a very clever animal, and it's good also in, you know, making the islanders' life miserable, because it steals food from kids' plates. If they leave fish to dry, it goes and grabs it. But it's there as a consequence of the human activities. There are different narratives. Some people say that it came through cruising ships. Some people say it came through ships who go to the port of Nakala, which is not far from there. But of course, it's clear that this crow is in the island, motivated by the human activity. So I just wanted to play you maybe the first sound for now, because we are discussing sound. And let me see. Okay, I'll play something which I called this is the crow scuffle. That's how I decided to call it, because it's two type of crows fighting for a space. Is it? Can you hear it now? Okay. Okay, this is just an illustration of one of the sonic experiences that one can get um, at the island. Of course, then I decided also to take these files and put them into a sonic spectrogram analysis, just to see how they look like, or how they could look like in terms of which sonic bands do they occupy. I must say that I was surprised that they occupy quite a lot in terms of sonic band. I didn't do the whole sonic spectrum. Yeah, of course, it's a much more complex exercise, but still I'll go back for that. Just to show you a bit, this is the crow scaffold, and you can see, of course, this is a very short clip, 5 seconds, but you can see one is here, occupying, let's say, around, yeah, from around 500 to 2000 plus kilohertz, and the other one is here. So which means that an important part of your well-being or your listening well-being is highly compromised, because when we speak about being in Ireland, we immediately think about the nice breeze, ocean, sea, calmness. Of course, this you can still find it at the Mozambique island, but it's more and more becoming scarce. I must say. Why? Because through our human actions, we have decided to import motorbikes, which serve as taxis at the island, and we didn't take into account. I'm not even going to talk about pollution. I'm just pollution. I mean, like from gases and stuff. I'm just looking at the sonic part of the experience. I'll just play you another file, which is a quick morning walk in the island, just to try to illustrate yeah, parts of the same sonic experience. Okay. Uh, of course, this is it's one with a lot more elements that I also wanted to bring. The sounds are there; you just have to listen to them. Like one morning, I went to walk, and there's people, swiping the floors, people talking, and the crowds flying in different directions. And you can also hear some small birds, a bit shy. Then you can hear the motorbikes, and you can hear TV sets inside people's homes. But this is an illustration of what you can find also within the island. I also want to share with you another visual of how it looks like. So you can see how loud and how powerful the motorbikes are on the island's sonic experience, because they take quite a huge band of sound band. Okay, let me see if I can share. It's here. Hold on. Okay, okay. Let's run away. Where are you? Okay. Okay, and seem to. Okay, here you are. Okay, it has just disappeared in front of me. Okay, where's the motorbike? It was just, sorry, I think I lost my motorbike.
Don't worry about it.
Yeah. Okay, here it is. Okay. I just put it to share. I was sharing the other. Okay. You are okay. Okay. This is the motorbike. As you can see, it's an example when it's coming. You can hear it from far. You can, if you, I'm not sure if you can see my cursor here, but all this yellowish, orangish shows how much space it takes in the sonic bands, which means that when it comes, it's a bit quiet, but as it goes, it takes all over. Of course, this is a matter of seconds. It's not like 10 minutes on the same, but imagine a motorbike passing, and, so this is just to show you what is the sonic, what can be the sonic experience. Imagine you're just relaxed and talking to someone, then it comes, then you have to wait until it goes. But this is just some ideas of how am I going about it. Of course, as I said, this is just the beginning of a much bigger project idea, which also will include some kind of sonic archaeology, by going back into archives and trying to see 100 years ago, 200 years ago, whatever years ago, which species were in the island, and how it sounded like. Of course, this will be also a kind of speculative work in that sense, because we don't have any recordings before, as I said, early 20th century, when recording technology was made available. And also sonic information is scarce, because the chronicles, the writers, the historians never really focused on the sonic experience of the places. They were very happy to see new exotic species and all that. And you have, of course, lots of nice, well done drawings. But when it comes to sound, it has proven to be quite scarce. In that sense. So maybe the next time we speak, there'll be a kind of tentative sonic or tentative soundscape of the island 300 years ago. Who knows? Since I want to use more time to interact, yeah, I'll stop for now, and please, let's discuss it. Let's talk about it. This is part. It's part of my work also to speak to different types of ways of looking at science, because I'm pretty sure that it will enrich me. Thank you.
Oh, thank you so much for that presentation, Rufus. Amazingly interesting. And I must say, everyone, you just missed it, but I had some of my own sonic soundscapes going on outside. We had a delivery, and it was a lot of building materials going on outside. So I was thinking, this is my current soundscape is one of corrugated iron bashing against each other. But thank you very much. This is really a fascinating talk, and I don't think that a lot of archaeologists, when we think about the past, we imagine people, we imagine landscapes and objects. And sometimes I think we can imagine soundscapes in terms of language, but there's so much more to imagining what the world sounded like to people living in ancient Egypt, or to people living, in a pre-colonial village in, early Iron Age Southern Africa. And in terms of thinking, the animal species that are extinct or no longer in that area. So you can go there, and the natural landscape has changed, and the people have changed, and the objects has changed, but the sounds have also changed. And that's something very interesting that I don't think I've even thought about before. So that's very interesting.
Thank you.
So I have actually a few other comments as well, because I've never really thought about it. I've got a few questions, but I'll try and limit it. In terms of my own experiences, I've been fortunate enough to travel a bit with my studies. I've attended one or two international conferences, and different experiences, not just in terms of the culture, but thinking back in terms of the soundscapes. For example, when I was in India, the place where I was staying was on an extremely busy stretch of road. And the first day I thought, the honking of the horns and those little tuk-tuk cars, and interestingly also the crows, because they also have these huge black crows, was just constant. It doesn't subside. It's right through the night. So when I think of my trip there, I immediately also think of the sounds of hooting cars and screeching crows. Whereas opposed to when I visited Japan also for a conference, there it's completely different, because there, if I think back about it, it's the sound of those cicadas, those sun beetles. And they have a very particular sun beetle that makes a very particular screeching sound. So when I think of Japan, my experience there, I hear those little insects in my mind. And it's interesting to think about your memories in terms of, we usually think in terms of it as sight and smell and physical experience, but we don't always remember in terms of the sound experiences. Any comments on that?
Yeah, well, particularly, I would say that it's only because we think about it, but we don't really focus on it. Because I would say probably it's a global, it's more or less a global culture, except for some remote groups who haven't had a lot of strong influences of globalization or modernity, if you want to call it so, like the Wasavi, somewhere I think in Papua New Guinea, who orientate themselves through sounds in the forest, which, because it's so dense, is so thick that the only way of you walking into a certain direction is following the sounds. That's one of the very few that I've heard about, and of course, as you say, depending where you come from, or where you are, um, it might be a nightmare when you have this tuk tuk and their horns honking all the time. But also, I found that after some time, or you somehow get to use it, get used to it. And maybe you notice when you're not there, like, oof, finally, it's so quiet here, to a point where silence starts to be something scary. So yeah, and when you speak about the cicadas are linked to some sort of peacefulness. I think when you hear the cicadas, it's mostly in the most quiet times of the day, either or when the early morning or beginning of evening. But normally during the day, you they're there, but seems like there's a lot more going on that they are silenced in that sense. Or maybe they're sleeping. I haven't really given it a thought, like the bats who sleep during the day. Yeah, but yeah, how can I put it? That's one of the challenges of our current way of thinking, of current way of seeing the world, because we tend more to look, to touch, and I think with mobile phones and tablets and with COVID, looking has become really the thing, even more stronger as a mean of conveying information, as a mean of interacting with people, even people within a close circle. We are more and more having to look at them through a screen. Sorry. So in that sense, yeah, it's a challenge. What I tell people when we speak about this is that try to listen more. You'll be surprised by the amount of sounds that surround you.
Yes, definitely. We sometimes when we sit in our front garden, especially on a Friday after a week of work, then we'll sit and sometimes we'll just listen. All the different sounds, and we're lucky to live in a suburb of Pretoria that has a lot of trees, so it has a lot of birds. I think we're fortunate in that sense that we're in an urban environment, but we also are still, we still have a lot of birds. So what I'd like to add also, and it's also a little bit more of, what people think about in terms of past cultures is, we as archaeologists sometimes like to think, if we could take people from the past and have them time travel to a modern setting, how overwhelmed they would be with the technology they encounter, the people they meet, the food they eat, cars, all kinds of things I'd never seen before. But I think a huge overload will actually come from sonic experiences, from audio, because everything, a lot of what we hear, we're familiar with. You hear a rattling sound or a clanking sound, and you can kind of, in your environment, you can guess more or less what makes that sound, or sometimes you can very particularly identify what makes a sound. But if you're in a completely new environment where you don't know what is making that sound, I'm guessing that it can be pretty overwhelming, in a new environment.
Yeah, because also one thing we have to see is that the only thing that really scares us is sound. It's never the visuals. You are scared of the bomb, not but what you see, but what you hear from the explosion. As I was telling you, even the silence itself can be scary if you are used to be in a place where, you know, the level of sound is higher. That's why in the movies, sound designers, they play a lot with our emotions in that sense. You see the danger, you hear the danger before seeing it. So in this in this reflection that you're bringing, like if you brought someone from the past into the present, I think they would be completely lost because of the amount of sound. Put them in a center in the business district of any big city, then they will be completely lost, because you have to see that even our computers, they use sounds as a way of telling us if there's something correct or not correct. Like when you connect a USB into your computer, there's a sound that tells you it's connected. When you switch it on, when you switch it off, and all that. Because psychologists have already known about it. So there's certain ringtones that you immediately know, okay, he's using this or that brand, and also, and TV programs have done it a lot to an extent. If someone is in the kitchen and hears the opening credits, knows, okay, now it's time for my favorite program, and all that. And certain movies have become, their soundtracks are so legends, or their sounds are so legendary, that they get to a point of, you know, now with TikToks and all these other things, you know, they can tell you danger is coming without saying a word. So that's also the power of the sound. So I just wanted to comment on with you on specifically on that, like sound is used as you know, tells you what's going to happen even before you know.
Yeah. Yeah, and I mean, like you mentioned in the movies, that, you know, they really exploit us for the connection we have with certain sounds and the
Yeah,
meaning associated. Because and I think the best film genre that makes use of that, of course, is the horror film industry. Because a lot of
definitely.
scary movies won't be scary if you
You don't
know,
have that sound. You
take
don't have
away.
those sounds. Yeah. Yeah.
Yes,
Now,
yes.
because also one thing you have to know about sound is that, well, except for you know, for breathing, um your ears are always open, while your eyes have times sometimes just take a pause. Even when you're watching a movie, you can give yourself some time, just, you know, to relax your eyes, to rest a bit. um Same happens on, you know, on when you are somewhere, you can blink, you can close your eyes a bit, but your ears don't have that time. So sometimes they let you, if you're sleeping and there's a strange sound in your house, you can hear it, and you wake up and you try to find out, okay, is there anything going on in that sense, to see how powerful sound can be. Betty Trucks, he has a very interesting TED talk. I'll share the link with you, about how important is sound, uh, you know, on the environment. I'm not sure. I'll share the link with you, even if I don't share it now.
Yeah. Yeah,
But
we
I'll
can
look for it and
always
and and
share
and
it
and
with the
share.
students.
Yeah, and share with you, because he has been doing this work for decades. So he has gone to forests and recorded sounds, let's say before a massive logging activity, and then showing how much you miss when you do massive logging, and showing by the amount of sounds that the sound layers that you don't have, because you have cut maybe a field equivalent to 10 football pitches, something like that. And he does it in a very interesting way, which no, it's Bernie Krause, not Barry Trouts, it's Krause. He does it in a very interesting way. Then he tells you like, okay, with a picture, this is what you see. With a sound, this is what you listen to. So you can't see what is behind you, but you can hear it coming. So it's yeah.
That's an interesting way of putting it. It's kind of like eyes for the back of your head, if you can imagine, because you can visualize if you hear something behind you, what is possibly there.
Yeah.
Well, thank you very much, Rufus. I think that's it for today for our students. I think if we really get into this topic, we can be here for a very long time. So to our students, remember to complete the little assignment that's associated with this lecture. We really like to engage your interaction with the subject material. And Rufus, thank you very much for your talk. And yes, from the council side, we hope to hear more of you from future events and to see you at conferences.
Thank you very much. It's as I said, it has been such a honor and a great pleasure. It's always nice to sit and discuss some of our ideas with a completely different crowd, if I can say so.
Yes.
It's quite nurturing, and it leaves. It puts me in a very good mood. It gives me power to go further, because when people say, wow, this is interesting, then it really gives me personally more energy to go about it, because for me this research is a labor of love. I'm just doing it for the sake of it being fun, informative, and exploring new ideas, new worlds, if I can say so. And to all the students who've been there, thank you very much for listening to me. And please, let's keep talking. If you have any doubts, you can just, Mariette has my contacts. Please feel free to interact, to challenge me, which is always great. Thank you very much. I've shared the link with you, Mariette, and you can share with the students, because also it's a very interesting talk in that sense. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And to our students, remember, like Rufus now said, please contact them if you have any ideas or would even maybe like to collaborate on some projects. So everyone, have a good day further. Goodbye.